Okay. Well, I think we're just waiting for a few people to join, but we'll start in a moment. Right. Okay. Well, I think it's time to start. So hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today on how to stay ahead of industry advancements brought to you by Uniglass. So to start off, I'll introduce our presenters today. We've got Mike Piper, Vice President of Development for Uniban Canada. Mike, welcome. And also we have Jim.
Thank you.
And also we have Jim Whitley, Senior Director of Insurance for Uniban Canada. Jim, welcome as well.
Thank you.
Okay. So starting off first, we just have a few housekeeping items. If any of the participants here today have questions, please submit them directly in the chat and we'll get to them once the webinar is finished. So with that, let's begin. So starting off, we want to talk about a changing industry because today a lot of things are happening almost simultaneously, it seems. So let's just talk about that. I mean, you know, what are some of the biggest trends happening? So Mike, let's start with you on that.
Yeah, thanks, Hugh, and thanks everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking some time out to explore some industry trends. What's the biggest change? What's the most overused term? The barrage of pandemic talk, and we're all a little tired of that at this point. And I certainly echo everybody's sentiment in that regard. But what we do know is it changed the landscape in every industry, and that's just as true for automotive. So today we'll take a little time. We'll look at a few constraints we've all had to deal with of late. And some examples of that are supply chain challenges. And that's not obviously not just specific to auto, but auto's been hit incredibly hard by that. There are partnerships out there to help you mitigate those challenges. We'll talk about advancements to your facilities and exploring additional revenue streams that can complement what you're currently doing and really help you, assist and plan for future disruptions to your existing business. And then third, how to relate to customers who've changed. The dynamic of your customer is different. A lot of them want to shop local. There's potential ways to deliver even more value to your existing customer base and possibly even expand into a whole new vertical, which is great for future disruptions such as crazy pandemics.
Okay, great. Well, kicking off, let's talk about technology, because there's no question over the last decade, we've seen huge advancements in technology in the automotive and other industries too. And, you know, it's here to stay. So let's just get into a bit of the nuts and bolts about that. Mike?
Yeah, for sure, Hugh. It's just as important as our industry changes and other industries that complement what we do change and support what we do. The changes to technology are equally as important. So if you think, or you have partners out there who think they don't need to know what ADAS is and what a driver-assisted safety system is, or what a sensor or code is, because they're only for new cars, you might be missing out on a really great opportunity to get ahead of a curve while those technologies advance today. Looking at the trend even in manufacturing, go back 10 years ago, electric vehicles probably laughed out of the showroom, frankly, and look at how that's changed. General Motors has a commitment to make every vehicle in their lineup electric by 2035. That's a huge, huge disruption to the industry. The same applies to ADAS. Look at a Corolla or a Civic as an example. Even a base model, a base package Corolla and Civic have at least 3 to 5 sensors in the windshield, automatic headlights and adaptive cruise control. These things aren't going away. And because we're on the cusp of those changes, now's a good time to start thinking about those investments.
Okay, great. And obviously there's another part of this as well, and that's the customer. So we hear a lot of talk today about how technology drives customers. So perhaps just talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. And really, let's define what customers we're talking about. This could be the end user, the individual who's operating the car. Could be your fleet partner, your insurance partner. It could be all three at the same time. The reality is this, and Sean Carey from SCG Management Consultants states last year, 60% of customers that received an incomplete or inadequate repair during their ownership cycle either sold or traded the car within a year. And almost 65% of those dissatisfied customers change brands. So it's important to get ahead of the advancements for your business, not just to ensure you're doing a safe repair, but to recognize your role as a repairer, as an aftermarket repair facility in customer satisfaction and retention. That's specific not just to OEM, that's specific to fleet and insurance partners as well. So many of you've already learned hey, telematics are soon going to provide OEMs first notice of loss. The adoption rate of that was quite slow out of the gate. But if we look at how the pandemic sped this up, that's a reality now. And I think we can all agree that that has changed. So are we thinking how automotive glass can play into that? How many sensors are located in that part of the vehicle and the repair? Jim, if you wouldn't mind, I'd ask you to maybe comment a little bit about how this information relates to insurance and fleet partnerships.
Yeah, happy to do it, Mike. Obviously, insurers want to leverage the technology and investments they've already made, but they also want to have a seamless claims experience for their insureds. And you mentioned, obviously, retention earlier. But the easier it is to sort of transact through the claims process, the more informed the customer will be and participative the customer will be. So you mentioned first notice of loss. If that client has a methodology to access their policy, maybe from their handheld or their tablet, and then communicate with their insurer in a digital fashion, they'll know the provider network that the insured would like to see them go to. It's a much better experience for an insured. A lot of them don't understand their policies the way we think they might. The average accident might happen every 8 years, but if they know they can go to their mobile phone and they can access a portal with their insurance and have instructions out of the gate, the insurer is pretty confident that they're going to show up in their trusted network, which of course keeps their cost down, enhances that level of customer service. So technology is huge, and it was pre-pandemic. It's current now, and like anything in technology, it happens so fast.
Okay, fantastic. Talking about training, Jim, obviously, when it comes to that, the best technology and equipment in the world is only effective with the right training, correct? So what are some of the key things that we need to consider here?
I'm glad you bring that up, Hugh. I mean, profit's not a bad word. We're all business operators and owners here. Training leads to profitability. And when you back that up a little bit, you look at the elements that are involved in training. It does take much longer than you think. So there needs to be a pragmatic and planned approach to training. And you can't let it get in the way of your productivity, but you also cannot not do it because it's going to enhance your productivity. So making calendar invites well in advance and planning on an annual basis for the training is pretty critical. It can be extremely affordable, but you should budget for it. This is human capital, like any other capital expense that you might have in your shop or in your business. So you have to understand that, yes, I know that this will lead to productivity and greater profit if it's done right. So people need to know in advance when their day is. You need to pull them out of productivity, and that could be 1 or 2 people. So you have to be mindful of those, maybe in shoulder seasons or days of the week that make more sense. You have to build the culture of training. The culture is important because you have to incentivize your team to learn new things, maybe enrich their job so they can cross-train. So if they take a vacation or a sick day, someone can move in and take up that task in a pretty seamless way. So again, leading to no interruptions in your productivity. So I think that all those things are important when you build a culture of training and investment in your people. And lastly, I'll say, we have some really bright minds in our shops and you want to keep them. So, making those best or keen employees the trainer, it just doesn't feel like work all the time. Now they have a level of responsibility to pass on that knowledge and some of the tips to help the other operators within the shop be more productive and enjoy what they do. And also the safety aspect, so they can do things in a safe and timely manner. So that's how I would approach it. It's extremely important. On the retention side of things, we all know what a turnover would cost and what it also means to the employees that are left behind. So we want to make sure that we're investing in our human capital, Hugh.
Okay, great. So the next thing is to talk about data and performance metrics. I mean, obviously today, data is everything, right? I mean, you can't manage what you can't measure. So with that in mind, what do you need to consider today, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, key performance indicators or KPIs, I guess we would call them, in various types of businesses. But some of the ones that come to mind in our space, at least, are, the ever repair versus replace dynamic. And I know certainly on the glass and the collision side, the insurers are looking for us naturally to repair. It keeps, the average costs down on particular files. It also, they'll want you back around for more further jobs if you sort of have their best interests at heart, provided that the repair or the replace is, it's done safely. Estimate accuracy is huge on the collision side of things, preparing the estimates that are compliant with the partnership guidelines. That stuff's big. you know, and it also supports the warranty work on those things. So that's important. Cycle time, can't say enough about it. How efficiently can you repair the car through scheduling, load leveling, you know, getting your parts on time. The other part about the cycle time, naturally, from my former life in the car rental space, was it keeps other expenses down when we keep that timeline tight for carriers. So that stuff's really important. Customer service, net promoter scores, whatever you do to measure your piece, Google reviews. These are pretty big elements that show, you know, the carriers, you're an extension to the service that insurance carriers give. So if this person can make, you know, a nice experience out of sort of bad, you know, claim scenario, they're going to be happy to come back, word of mouth and all those lovely things. And we mentioned cost effectiveness. That's the other KPI that jumps out when you do have that ample repair versus replace mentality. You know, metrics are important and they should be everyday metrics. You shouldn't wait to the end of the month to see how the month went or the end of the quarter. This should be every day. You should celebrate, you know, the victories, and you should also embrace the challenges and break them down into smaller bits. And you can't do that unless you look at the numbers every single day, Hugh.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Jim. Thanks for sharing that with us. So moving on to next, I mean, you know, this is a great quote here. So the elevator to success is out of order. You have to use the stairs one step at a time. So Mike, do you want to sort of dive into this and talk a bit about building a complementary business to kind of get ahead? Because at the end of the day, that's kind of where we're going, isn't it?
Well, it is, honestly, and Joe Girard is akin to my, I guess, my experience in the auto sector from selling. But the reality is we do have to take one step at a time. And in our industry, specifically automotive aftermarket, we can get lost in the barrage of constant new technology and this new product and this new computer system. But the reality is we just need to sometimes take a step backwards and slow down a little bit and do some research. And when you think of complementary businesses to go along with your existing auto body or dealership or mechanical repair facility, you're not only diversifying or thinking of diversifying your business and skill set, but you're building a broader understanding of the industry on the whole, right? Nobody wants to get left behind while technology and complex repairs become the norm. If you want to better understand it to prepare your team, you can then probably better capitalize on it, quite frankly. So think about it. There's always going to be some new innovations. We've all seen this. It's the reality, right? Every so often in any industry, there's a major change or major game changer that presents itself. We've mentioned Tesla. We've mentioned General Motors plans. Whether it's something small that grows into popularity, innovation is so integral, especially when it's adopted immediately. Evolution is never going to stop. Let's be honest. The automotive aftermarket industry has to keep up with these advancements to remain profitable and relevant. We talk about retaining talent. Jim just spoke to that. Staffing challenges will only continue to persist in the coming years, not just the auto space, but in all business. I think we've seen that. I mean, I sat at an airport and waited for, I think, about an hour for bags to come down because there's no staff. This is a reality, and we certainly hope it's a short-lived trend, but we better stay ahead of it. So it's important. Think of your team. Invest in their learning. Invest in your facility. Make it a great place to be so that people don't feel like they want to jump off or get on a different bus. The right equipment and training, they will grow with you professionally and personally, and that's important now more than ever. And then think about preparing your future growth, right? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. If you look at adding new services and learning new parts of our industry, you're going to be in a much better position to prepare yourself for inevitable future changes.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Mike. So moving on, let's talk about opportunities in glass. So what are they?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's probably why most people are here. Let's be honest, right, Hugh? So let's talk about the repair process. If you can own and control any portion of the repair process, why aren't you, right? Glass might be a major missed opportunity for most on this call who might not be doing it because you're not considering that it could add a new revenue stream, right? You could add this to your portfolio and create a profitable repeat auto glass business. I started by talking about how the customer's changing. They want to shop local. If they've already done business with you and they trust you and they like you, why wouldn't you want to bring them back for future repairs and own the entire process? You can diversify your customer base outside of what you already have as well. This is critical. Think in a dealership environment. If you've got somebody driving your competitor's vehicle and they trust you to come in and do your glass repair, you have an opportunity to introduce to them your product. That's a wonderful thing. Remember that quote, almost 65% of people who have an inadequate repair experience end up trading and switching brands. And so that's an opportunity for our dealer partners and our collision partners and our automotive aftermarket mechanical facilities need to also be mindful of that, because they're also partners with each other, right? We all work together in this industry. Think about cost and time savings. I mean, if you're subletting these repairs down the road or to a competitive operation, you're not just losing control, you're adding extra steps to your process, your controls, right? You're adding paperwork, sublets, markups. When we do that, we introduce the opportunity for human error. And we know that most of our partners, including our customers, more importantly, don't like that. So why not get ahead of it? Think about partnerships down the road to help you with procurement. Think of those logistics challenges and supply chain challenges, right? Uniglass Plus is part of Driven Brands, right? So you have exclusive access to our company-owned distribution, our rebates, bottom line savings. All of these things are available when you look to partnerships like a Uniglass Plus. Industry relationships are another part of considering a Driven Brands owned business. Our family is really specifically targeted and auto-centric. We're not diversifying into, other different markets. This is all about automotive aftermarket, and it's from glass to collision repair to mechanical to distribution, and that's one of the benefits that we can provide. Certainly, marketing support is key. The marketing landscape has changed drastically. Lots of people having to work from home means we have to talk to them on the devices and the platforms where they are. And so the marketing piece is another real key component when you consider an opportunity in a glass business. And then lastly, performance support, right? Nobody is owed work to the door anymore. In the automotive industry, like all others, you have to earn it. And that goes to that quote from Joe Girard, right? We have to take that step, one step at a time. We have operations field coaches and centralized team to offer you training and support to ensure you hit your targets, and then you can help inspect what you expect, right? This is all about performance and diversification.
Okay, yeah, great points there, Mike. So moving on, I mean, we talked about sort of opportunities in glass, but let's look at growth in the glass industry, because there's been incredible growth over the years in this sector of the industry, and no one's really talked about it, have they?
Well, I think some people are starting to consider it, and as of even a couple of weeks ago, as we were building this webinar, we've seen this first graphic that you see on the left of the screen. That was 1 in 5 jobs as of last year, and as of 2 weeks ago, it's now 2 in 5 that require some type of calibration. Speaks to the changes even at the base model packages in our industry. So when we're looking at this in general, you want to be partnered with a company that understands calibration. You want to be partnered with somebody who's using calibration services. As of today, 3.7 million vehicles are equipped with some form of driver-assisted safety program. That's critical, because that's only going to go up from here, right? At least, if not by 2022, by 2023, all new vehicles are going to have some type of a sensor involving ADAS, which is going to require some form of calibration. This is not going anywhere. This is the new trend. And when we speak a little bit about the changing insurance landscape, I'm going to ask Jim to speak to that in a minute, but ask yourself this. If you're not thinking about glass or any type of diversification in your current business, why, right? And Jim, if you wouldn't mind, talk a little bit about the performance-based analytics and KPIs in our insurance and fleet industry.
Yeah, no, happy to do it. It just popped out of my mind as you mentioned that, Mike, that, insurers now, when you talk about preparing them for the costs in the things into the future as it relates to glass or intelligent glass, they need to understand that these costs of calibration are necessary costs, and it's a safety scenario, and you need to prepare them for that. The average insurance fleet now is 7 or 8 years old, so we're just starting to see this. Approximately 25 to 30% now of our current windshields are needing ADAS calibration, and each year it's going to go up by 8 or 9%. So we prepare our insurers for that. as we look into the future. So they understand that. And the other piece about it is we want to make sure they understand the training elements that go into this. And, you know, a tech is much more enabled now than a tech might have been a few years back. And they do require more training in this element. And I had a conversation the other day with an insured about an RV replacement who still didn't really grasp that it just takes more than 2 people to replace glass in an RV. You know, it's 8 hands instead of 4. So these are things that that we have to constantly have conversations with them about, so they're not surprised by it. In doing that, when we look back at, you know, sort of our Uniglass history over 50 years in the business as we've evolved into this intelligent glass space, so there's a ton of tenure and experience and idea sharing through that piece, and also reputational stability through that. And clearly you can't fix or replace glass when you don't have a viable distribution center that's going to give you that competitive pricing and also timely delivery of quality glass, and also some calibration services as well. So we have that in our sister company at Nationwide, so 17 centers across the country and growing. And Mike obviously mentioned the corporate or the shared service philosophy that we have. We have access to HR, legal, data analytics. All these pieces are important. And Mike mentioned boots on the ground and operational and technical training help. We also teach about sales. So we talk about, you know, Mike mentioned how do you bring more money and revenue to the store on your current customer base, or how can you grow your customer base in your own backyard? We teach all of those things through, you know, our training of our people on the ground. And then lastly, we share a lot of ideas across our network. We're all in the same team. So there's a lot of best practices and things that we talk about from an operational standpoint on a pretty regular basis. So we're also pretty competitive, and we're there to congratulate the others, but we're also competing in a friendly capacity with the others. So it's a really cool network, and it's been a fun ride for myself so far. Hugh?
Excellent stuff. Great. Well, now we've kind of reached the end of the presentation, everyone. So basically, if you'd like more information, please reach out to Mike. His details are on the screen, so you can see it there. And now we're going to jump into a couple of questions. So obviously, starting off, a couple of common questions we often get. So one of them is like, you know, first of all, I don't have enough space in my fixed ops operations now. So how am I going to add a glass franchise into that?
Well, you know, that's an excellent question, and it is. There's always space constraints. There's equipment that takes up room. So looking at it, adding it to your existing facility, be it a dealership, that could be in your service drive-through. It's not literally a desk, but you know, you can have an intake center there. It doesn't take up a giant footprint. We could talk in the mobile capacity as well. I often wonder, you know, if or when someone's going to disrupt the mobile glass business by looking at some of the metro markets where you've got, you know, giant buildings downtown that unfortunately might still be a little vacant at the moment. People park underground. Why not replace their windshield while they're working, you know, over their lunch break in a nice heated facility? These are just different strategies we can consider. The mobile component is ever changing. It's ever growing, and the more we can do for people at their home in a touchless environment, the happier everyone's going to be. So that's a great question, and I'd be happy to take that one, you know, and more of a personal. Let's explore. Let's look at your existing facility and see if we can't help redesign a little bit of a production flow.
Okay, great. So we ask the audience, if you have any questions, please submit them directly in the chat, and then our experts will answer them for you. So we do have another question here, and that is, how can I start a new business now, especially when my mechanical shop hasn't even bounced back from 2020? Because I think a lot of people are still in that uncertain aspect. They're trying to sort of build their business up again, but COVID has continued to sort of, you know, put a damper on things. But they want to look at the future. They want to see that, you know, there's opportunities out there, but they don't know where to start.
Yeah, you know, that's another great point. And a lot of businesses haven't bounced back because, frankly, we're starting to see some of the traffic volumes increase. I think if we're talking specific to a mechanical facility or oil change facility or a car wash or a tire facility, this is an opportunity to diversify, and that can only help. It's not a giant investment out of the gate to get into the glass business. You know, there's calibration equipment. There's certainly a cost to that. Leveraging partnerships such as the ones that Driven Brands have can help with that equipment purchase. There's all kinds of different options, but ultimately it's a diversification play. If we think of the quick lube model, or the tire model. These are pieces that wear out, and a windshield's no different. If a windshield's cracked or broken, it needs to be replaced. And maybe that transmission repair or that oil leak might get put on the back burner, but something as safe as a windshield that impacts your ability to operate your car is a repair, part of the repair process you might want to start considering.
Okay, great. Well, we have a few more minutes for any more questions, so please submit them in the chat, and we'll just give everyone a few more minutes and go from there. Okay, well, we're still waiting to see if we get any last minute questions, but Mike, Jim, anything else you'd like to mention today?
Again, just a thank you to everybody who participated. We know time is, especially this time of year, is a precious commodity. Exploring this and having conversations with myself or Jim, we're always open to that. I just wanted to, if I could cap it off, unless there's additional questions to you, if you consider Uniglass or Uniban or any part of our system as part of the largest automotive aftermarket family through Driven Brands, this is something we really do believe is an industry trend. It is going to change, and it's a part of the automotive aftermarket that not a lot of folks potentially are thinking about. So I really see some great potential. There's a lot of momentum. There's some incredible deals for early adopters who might want to consider this. Now we're looking to expand, and we're not going to stop our plans. So again, just a big thank you. And Jim, if you want to cap us off, unless there's additional questions, I can leave it at that.
Yeah, no, last point I'll make, Mike, is the glass season is really complementary to the collision season, if that. So when you look at a shoulder or a drop off, one is on the way out and the other's on the way up. So it's really interesting that we smooth out the curves of business revenue streams that come in. And I think glass does a nice job between, April and October to really fill in a lot of gaps and keep the foot traffic going into the shop. So I just wanted to add that.
Okay.
Yeah, excellent points.
Great. Well, Mike, Jim, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to work with us today on this webinar. We also like to thank our audience. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. And as I said, Michael's contact information is on the screen. So if you'd like to learn more, please reach out to him.
And thanks, everyone. And thanks, Jim, for your help, and Hugh for hosting. And if we don't hear from you before, have a wonderful, safe holiday season with your family.
Yeah. Happy holidays, everybody.
Pleasure. Happy holidays.